100%. So here's the map that you cannot read in 1,000 years, but you're welcome to come up and inspect it afterward. I'll just point out a few examples. For example, in Highland Creek, okay, current assessment ratio in Highland Creek is about 93% for the median sale. That's not every property in Highland Creek. That's the middle sale price. So using that as an indicator, that tells us what? Value change between 2003 and now is not very significant. In fact, if we have an assessed ratio in the neighborhood with our new 2011 assessments around 95%, we feel pretty good about that. Because we don't want to overappraise properties that are above that price. So not much change in a Highland Creek type area. In Burkdale, I'm picking on the north because this is the part of the county that I have worked the most in. The current assessment ratio is 77%. So that indicates that sale prices have moved up measurably from where they were in 2002 when we analyzed data for the 2003 revaluation. One more example. The Northwoods area, out Highway 16, that ratio is now over 100%. That's an area that has been hit hard by foreclosures, short sales, etc. The ratio up there is actually incorrect. I think the last time we checked it's about 110%, which indicates a 10% drop from where those values were back in 2003. So that's sort of how we track the market. But again, this is not parcel specific. Every property has its own unique characteristics, and the assessed value will differ based upon size, square footage, age, quality of the property. But these are benchmarks that kind of tell us where the market has been going. And so the question always becomes, your clients will ask, what does this mean for my property tax? And I'm not being funny in saying we don't know. We don't know because the assessed value of the property is only one half of that equation. What happens to property taxes will hinge entirely upon what the county commissioners and the municipalities decide to do with their tax rates this coming summer. That rate multiplied, first of all, we take the assessed value, divide it by 100, and multiply that estimate by the tax rate to get the new amount of taxes paid. Neighborhoods where there's been significant appreciation in value since 2003 are going to see a higher assessed value, which means they could see a tax increase. Those neighborhoods where values have fallen since 2003, a lower assessed value, which probably will mean a lower tax bill. But that all remains an unknown at this point. Okay. We had one more slide in the public presentation. It's not here. If you have any questions that you want, and you want a handy reference to go to, please jot down Reval, R-E-V-A-L, Reval.Charmeck, C-H-A-R-M-E-C-K, .org, O-R-G. Reval.Charmeck.org. We have video presentations there. We have a long FAQ of typically asked questions that people have about how the revaluation process and taxes work. We have this slide presentation available for your closer inspection on that site, as well as the presentations we've made at the different commissioners' districts. Okay. Just close with some thoughts about the appeal process, and then I'll open it up to your questions. When a person receives their notice of value, there will be a tear-off form at the bottom of that notice. If they have probable cause to believe that our value, and this, I'm going to quote the statute here, is substantially different from what the fair market value of the property really is, they should appeal that value. There are two primary reasons why people appeal their property value. Number one, there's a factual error. We have the wrong square footage, we have the wrong bath count, we've got the wrong acreage. The other reason is because there is a clear difference of opinion of value based upon what the property owner sees sales activity in their neighborhood to be versus how we analyzed it. They can write down any comparable sales they want to on that tear-off. They can write down a list of properties that have just been sitting there for 2 years that haven't sold, although we do track that information ourselves, and send that in to us. That begins the informal appeal process, meaning that our appraisal staff will investigate all of those appeals and get back with the property owner, and the vast majority of those appeals are resolved between our appraisers and the property owner. Now, we're expecting a tsunami of appeals this time because we're in a new economy that's below that line that I showed you on that graph. People know it. People are trying to cut. They're cutting their debt. Anything that they can, where they can reduce their living expenses, including their property tax, they're going to go after. I got quoted as saying this in the paper. You can't do a whole lot about what's happening in Washington or Raleigh, but you can come right down here and see us. We're the first line of government. We know it. I've got tread marks all over. They're going to come see us. We know that. The more of those informal appeals we have, the longer it's going to take for us to process them. Now, when that notice of value comes out next month, the property owner will have 30 days from the time of receiving that notice to file an informal appeal if they feel like the value is substantially different.
What about someone who is in the process of purchasing, who does not get that form, terrible form, or no?
Right.
Maybe he buys the property in March or April.
And he can still appeal that value. We have that happen all the time, and if they can just let us know that they were not owner of record on January 1, but they wish to appeal that value, we work with folks like that. The question was, what about a person who buys a property after the first of the year and they don't get that initial notice of value? We'll work around that. We have that crop up from time to time. Now, yes, sir.
In the appeal, you will only be looking at that prior to...
Guys, we have a mic in the back if you want to use the mic to ask your questions. Raise your hand and I'll come to you. That way people actually know what you're talking about.
Just wanted to make sure when people appeal, they will need to use data prior to January 1st, correct?
Yes, this was an issue last night at our Matthews meeting because one of the concerned citizens who came out for the presentation wanted to know, what are you going to do about all this unsold inventory and the effect it's going to have on the market going forward? Well, we know that. We know that it's having an impact. But we can only reflect value estimates up to December 31st. So, in making an appeal, the property owner will need to present us data that represents January 1 of 2011. In other words, if they bring us sales data from February, March, April, whatever, not only are we not going to consider it, but at the next appeal level, which is the Board of Equalization and Review, by statute, they won't consider that information either. Again, by the book.
Another one right here.
Well, excuse me. How that tax value going to affect the sale or buy of that property? Is that 100% correct? Or let's say I have somebody, they want to sell their house more than tax value, and we find somebody for it. And then the appraiser comes, what going to say? Is that too much? Is that less? Or how that affect the property?
That, an appraisal is an opinion. That's our opinion of value. And yes, we will have property owners contact us wanting their value estimate raised. Not many, but there will be some, because they want to sell, or they want to make sure that the value is worth what they transacted for. But that's simply our opinion of value. It should not have a final determination on what two individuals contract.
But usually the buyer put their finger on your opinion.
Sure, I understand that. I do.
We got one over here.
My question is about the foreclosures. It's kind of a multi-tiered question, but it's kind of, I don't know, kind of not as accurate as I want it to be as far as what's that equation that you're using, because ultimately our clients, the value is what somebody's willing to pay for. But the true value is how much a bank's willing to give you on it. Whether you have own it free and clear and you're trying to sell something as a loan, or you're trying to get an equity line, whatever. But they take into account those foreclosures just as much as a non-foreclosure. So how much difference do you, in that equation you said, there's you said variables, but what are those variables? And how much difference is it from an actual regular sale?
The statistician our analysis is not complete, but one of the coefficients he came up with was about a $15 per square foot difference between a distressed sale property and one that's not. Now, in doing their regular cost approach analysis, if our appraisers include the foreclosures in their sales report, what that's going to do is it's going to, first of all, widen the range of sales available for analysis, but it's going to pull the median sale price down in the neighborhood. Well, it's true where foreclosures are prevalent. Yes, I would totally agree with that. I think the definition becomes fuzzy when we redefine what is typical in the neighborhood. I can remember back in, back in 1990, I was appraising properties. I'm trying to remember the name of the subdivision. It's down there where John Boy and Billy used to live, off of Park Road. And the whole neighborhood was nothing but relocation sales, park crossing things. Relos, we normally did not treat those the same as arm's length transactions because there was a third party involved. But where they become prevalent, that gets into the mind of the typical buyer and seller. So if I'm buying in there, I'm not paying more than what those other properties are selling for. Same thing with the distressed sales. They're going to have a dampening effect on the median price in the neighborhood.
I'm not sure the exact facts on this, but originally, the revaluation, the new one, was going to be 2007 or 2008. And you went around and you did all those appraisals, and most of those appraisals had to be, if it was 2008, they had to be 2007. Okay, now, I find it very hard, and you did those, correct?
Well, let me just interject. We were originally supposed to do a revaluation in 2007.
Okay.
The assessor asked the Board of County Commissioners for time to restructure the assessor's office so that we could dedicate a team exclusively to that process. Then the bubble burst, and we were then going to do the reassessment in 2009, and we had to stop what we were doing. Yes.
So then, since 2009, well, actually, I guess you have done 350,000 revaluations, 6 of you, in the last 6 months?
We're amazing. I'm not trying to be silly.